Dear student, my name is Paolo Guernaccia. I teach organic agriculture at the University of Catania. The title of my presentation is Organic Farming and Agroecology Contribution to Mitigating Food Insecurity, Climate Change and Biodiversity Loss. To talk about sustainability, we need to change our perspective, both in the space and in the time point of view. About space, we live in this very nice, colorful planet, but if we look at it from the space, our Earth, our home, become like a pale blue dot. In this blue dot, there are in this moment wars, violence against people, against environment. We should take care of our environment and live all together like we are in a spaceship. In fact, the concept of spaceship Earth was developed since 1879, and this tells us how it is important to take care of the equilibrium of temperature, humidity, water, fresh water, food production, and so on. But today this doesn't seems the most important priority, unfortunately. We need also to change our perspective in considering the time. The life exists in the planet Earth since 3 billion years, the first fossil cells discovered, but as Homo sapiens we just arrived 200,000 years ago, and the agriculture started 10,000 years ago, so our civilization. But if we consider all this time like a solar year, then we are living just in the 45 seconds before midnight, where the Sumerians started agriculture in Mesopotamia, and just 1 second before midnight we have Industrial Revolution, French Revolution, colonialism, World War I and II, globalization and climate change. Everything in 1 second. We are creating the condition not to survive as human in this planet. I told you about the beginning of agriculture. It happened in 3 areas in the world in the same time, 10,000 years ago. And Central America, Mediterranean Basin, East Asia. And this was due to the fact that in the last 10,000 years the temperature was steady in the Earth, in comparison with 100,000 years where there were big changes, and the humans couldn't live always in the same place, but they had to move, so they couldn't settle down and start agriculture. In 1962, Rachel Carson wrote the book Silent Spring to let people be aware of the use of pesticides and the dangers of these chemical compounds. In 1972, the Club of Rome asked the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to write a report about the limit to growth. Unfortunately, the worst scenario that they designed is what we are facing today about resources, food, pollution, the increasing of population, and so on. Today we can measure how we are not sustainable. The Earth Overshoot Day is an index that tells us the period of the year that we live, not considering the capacity of the resource to auto-regenerate. While in the 70s we were in equilibrium, today we spend 5 months using the resources that are not our resources, are the resources of our sons or the resources of other people that in the earth don't have enough food, enough water, enough energy, enough heat. And this is about carbon dioxide concentration. In the last 100 years it is increasing in a linear way, while for millennia this concentration never exceeded 300 parts per million. Today we exceed 420 parts per million. And this is the relation with the temperature of Earth that is increasing. Also, if different research centers measure in different way, but the disagreement is it's very minimum. So the trend is that the temperature is increasing in the Earth. But not only the climate change, we have other planetary boundaries like biosphere integrity, land system change, freshwater change, biogeochemical flows, ocean acidification, atmospheric aerosol loading, stratospheric ozone depletion, and novel entities. So most of them we already overcome the threshold, and we don't live anymore in a safe planet because of these planetary boundaries that are not being respected. So if the planetary boundary represents the environmental ceiling of our home, the social foundation of our home is represented by the 11 rights that all the inhabitants on the earth should be available, like food, water, income, education, resilience, voice, jobs, energy, social equity, gender equality, and health. If we put together this data from Rockstrom and the United Nations, we can see in these slides that together we form like a donut. So the environmental ceiling and social foundation create a safe and just space for humanity where to live and where to develop our society in an inclusive and sustainable way. The activist says that we need a revolution, but the same approach as the Pope Francesco, that in his book Laudato Si pointed his finger against the big multinational corporation that create a lot of profit without respecting people and environment. Since 1995, the top 1% person have captured nearly 20 times more of global wealth than the bottom 50% of humanity. The world's 62 richest people own the same wealth as the 3.6 billion poorest people in the earth. The biggest corporation that share the market of global pesticides are almost the same of that one that owns seed industry structures, and they are linked with the companies that manage the food distribution model nowadays. We have three unsustainable paradoxes about food and nutrition today. Nevertheless, the use of pesticides and new varieties, mechanization, there are still in the world more than 800 million people starving, but today we have also 1.5 billion people that eat too much and they don't eat in a proper way. The other paradox is that 50% of the cereal and legume we produce, they are used to feed animals in the industrial livestock, and they are used to produce energy. The third paradox is that 1/3 of the annual food production in the world is wasted. It means that 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted. One-fourth of this amount would be enough to feed the 800 million people that are starving every day. To produce, process, transport, and eat one food calorie, today we consume 7.3 calories of energy. In the traditional agriculture, the ratio was the opposite. People were using 1 calorie to produce 10 calories of food energy. So in agriculture, it is used 1.6 calories to produce 1 food calorie, but then other calories are used to transport, process, packaging, and selling the products, and also in the preparation and storing in our houses. Each time we eat something, this food has covered 3,500 kilometers from the field to our table. And the AFOLU, that means agriculture, forestry and land use, is responsible of 24% of greenhouse gas emissions. But we consider the indirect CO2 emission, there is almost 1% more, so it means that 25% of greenhouse gases comes from the agri-food systems. But if we consider not only the agriculture production and the land use change, but also the processing, transport, packaging and retail and the waste, we are responsible for the 50% of greenhouse gas emission. So agriculture is the victim, but is also the cause of the climate change. But agriculture could be the solution if we change model, if we shift from industrial agriculture to agroecology approach. Then we will be able to store in the soil carbon, to sequester soil in the carbon, carbon in the soil, and this quantity is a huge quantity considering the surface used with agriculture in the world, and it will be able to compensate in a very fast way, to compensate the CO2 that we put in the atmosphere every year. In the US, 59% of food tested was containing pesticides residues. Some were within tolerance, but nobody studied the influence of the mixed pesticide that we find in the food, because we can find also 10 different pesticide residues in one fruit, for example, and nobody considered that the threshold are calculated for a human adult man 70 kilos of weight. And what happens if this food is eaten by a child that his weight is just 7 kilos? So the effect of pesticide will be 10 times more. And so our gut, receiving all this input, become inflamed, become permeable, and this is the opening of the chronic disease that affect 3/4 of the people worldwide. It's true that the life expectancies increased until 80 years for men and women, but the time of our lives that we live as healthy people is only around 60 years. This means that we live 20 years with a chronic disease. We have 300,000 species in nature. 10,000 have been used as food during the history of agriculture. 1.5 thousand species are currently used in modern agriculture, but only 120 species provide more than 90% of food. 4 plant species and 3 animal species provides more than 50% of food. FAO notes that the 2 main causes of agrobiodiversity loss are the rapid expansions of industrial agriculture and the globalization of the food system and marketing. The loss of biodiversity is very dangerous because we lose genes that should be very useful in the future in a context of climate change, to create new varieties that are able to adapt to the new conditions. In Sicily, 75% of the soil are affected by desertification. They contain less than 1% of organic matter. And of course, the hilly soils are also affected by soil erosion. And in Sicily, we have more than 300,000 hectares abandoned. the reason of this abandoned is that we import 75% of food, and look how the water, surface and groundwater aquifers are contaminated by pesticides, and how the unemployment increased in Sicily in the last 60 years, and half of the unemployment is of young people. Now agriculture loses importance in Sicily. It's just 4.2% of the gross domestic product. But the poverty index of Sicilian household increases up to 26% or 22% for families. So here you can see this is a survey that I have done with my students in more than 300 shops in Sicily, big, medium and small size shops. More than 75% of food is imported. And this is what happens. Every year 20,000 young people leave Sicily to look for jobs in other regions or in other countries. And leaving the young people, the farmer senility is increasing. More than 80% of farmers are older than 40s. We could have an opportunity welcoming young people that comes from Africa or Asia, where the condition for their life are strongly affected by climate changes. Instead of welcoming them, we don't educate or train them. We could remodeling the abandoned village and create a center for education and vocational training to use again the 300,000 abandoned hectares in Sicily. We did a project, the University of Catania, with the Gaia Education ONG, where we formed 80 migrants, and the surprise was that at the end of the course they were able to find a job in Sicily, but most of them they wanted to go back to their countries because they knew how to make agriculture without external input. The other challenges we have to face is the increasing of population. We have to feed by 2050 almost 10 billion inhabitants. So which are the lessons that we learned from industrial agriculture and globalized food system? We learned that food safety, security and sovereignty are seriously threatened by soil and water pollution, food contamination by chemical residues, soil fertility decrease, biodiversity loss, land use change, reduction of freshwater availability, land abandonment, depopulation of small towns. So we need a change. The paradigm of the current food system that has driven us until today has failed. We need a transformational change in all productive sectors that truly addresses the different dimensions of sustainability, the economic one, the environmental, and the social. The Gaia Education ONG developed this four-dimension framework for a whole system designed for sustainability, where together with the ecological, economic, and social dimension, there is a new one, the worldview. We need a holistic worldview, we need to reconnect with nature, to transform our consciousness, to take care of personal and planetary health together, and to have a social engaged spirituality. Today, the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations tell us which are the goals that we have to reach before 2030, the 17 development goals. And here I would like to show you how food is strictly linked with all the 17 development goals. This means that if we change our food systems, we will make big change in all the other directions, because food is related with all the other goals. Again, together with my student, we are creating a timeline of sustainability, because we have to keep to be positive. We don't have to be scared of the future. We have to keep in mind all the progress we did in the last 100 years towards sustainability. From the institutional side from the association world, from the research world, from the companies world. So there are a lot of good practices, a lot of good examples that we have to keep in mind, and we have to think globally, but we have to act locally, because we don't have enough energy and power to make a change worldwide. But if each communities made by research institutions, associations, and companies start to move towards sustainability, it will be very easy and very fast to change our patterns. To reach sustainability, we need a systemic thinking and holistic approach, also a multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach, participative and intergenerational approaches, acting on the problem causes, not only on the effect, and also a retro-innovative and bioregional approach, and One Health approach promoted by the World Health Organization in 2015. Retro-innovations, it's very important, because we have to recover the value of the past to find the solution for the future. We need young people that, considering our tradition, they introduce innovative technologies in our models. And this is the One Health approach, where food systems link together the health boundaries with the planetary boundaries. The word agriculture or culture comes from the Latin word cultus, that means to honor and affectionate veneration of person or things that worth of it. So this was the really approach of agriculture, approach based on the listening, on the respect that we have to recover. And the myth of Demeter and Core tell us how the agriculture was strictly linked with our mythology and tradition. Demeter give as a present a grain of wheat to the king that helped her to restore after she was exhausted looking for her daughter Core that was kidnapped, and revealed to him the way to make it yield and laying the foundation for the development of agriculture. This was 2000 years ago. And again, Demeter and Core represent the most joyful and careful epiphany of the deity to which all the soil of Sicily was consecrated. The transition towards agroecology-based sustainable food system needs to increase the efficiency of practices and resources and substituting external inputs, transform agricultural production system to be more resilient, sustainable, strengthening market that support agroecology, and building an enabling environment for more sustainable food system. Food is related to crop system, contrast to climate change, soil consumption, water consumption, pollution, landscape, biodiversity, food waste, renewable energies, local economy, jobs, culture and health. This now is called diet nexus. A sustainable food system is a system that guarantees food security and nutrition to all in such a way that the economic, social and environmental bases to generate them are not compromised for future generations. FAO 2018. An agroecological, sustainable and inclusive food system provide enough healthy food for 10 million people by 2050, stimulate a change towards diet healthy for humans and for the planet, produce local assorted seasonal food, protect small producers and processors, avoid waste production, protect biodiversity and landscape, use renewable energy, reduce consumption of resources, low external input and greenhouse gas emissions, favor the local economy, re-evaluate the role of municipal wholesale market, local markets and small retails as bakery, greengrocers, butchers and fishmongers, generate stable and decent jobs and are linked to local tradition and cultural identity. Today, we are able to assess the food system sustainability. We have different system indexes, like, for example, ecological, carbon and water footprint. We know how to calculate the energy balance of farms, of production, of cultivation. We can calculate the land use efficiency. We can use the life cycle assessment system to evaluate the sustainability of a product or a process. And we have also the system promoted by FAO that is called SAFA, Sustainability Assessment of Food and Agriculture System. So if we start a project, a strategy to design and implement a sustainable food system, we can evaluate and monitor the results. Of course, organic agriculture plays a fundamental role. Organic agriculture is a production system that sustains the health of soil, ecosystem, and people. It relies on ecological processes, biodiversity, and cycles adapted to a local condition, rather than the use of inputs with adverse effects. Organic agriculture combines tradition, innovation, and science to benefit the shared environment and to promote fair relationships and good quality of life for all involved. This is the definition of organic agriculture written by the International Federation of Organic Agricultural Movement in 2008. The four principles of organic agriculture are health, ecology, fairness, and care. The principle of health points out that the health of individuals and communities cannot be separated from the health of ecosystems. Healthy soil produces healthy crops that foster the health of animals and people. The principle of ecology says that organic agriculture should be based on living ecological systems and cycles, work with them, emulate them, and help sustain them. Based on the principle of fairness, organic agriculture should build on relationships that ensure fairness with regard to the common environment and life opportunities. And respecting the principle of care, organic agriculture should be managed in a precautionary and responsible manner to protect the health and well-being of current and future generations and the environment. The IFOAM developed also the concept of Organic 3.0. While Organic 1.0 was the organic of pioneers from around the world, and the Organic 2.0 was the norming and performing phase, the Organic 3.0 considered the culture of innovation, continuous improvement towards best practices, diversity of ways to ensure transparent integrity, inclusion of wider sustainability interest, holistic empowerment from farm to final consumer, and true value and cost accounting. And Organic 3.0 looks beyond the farm, looks at the territory, looks at the energy, looks at the health of the consumers, and looks to create a model, a sustainable model, and a sustainable food and farming systems. We are in the phase of the agroecological transition. Agroecology is a polysemic concept with over 30 definitions adopted by government, academia, and civil society organizations. Agroecology applies ecological concept and principle to optimize interaction between plants, animals, humans, and the environment, while considering the social aspect needed for sustainable and fair food systems. Agroecology is a transdisciplinary field that includes ecological, sociocultural, technological, economic, and political aspects. It encompasses the entire food systems supply chain from production to consumption. Which are the tangible challenges of agroecology? Relies on biodiversity, promote internal inputs, nutrient cycling, locally adapted genetics, rather than external input like fertilizer, pesticide, imported concentrated feed, imported not locally adapted genetics. High knowledge intensive, builds upon farmers' collective knowledge and innovation. Attractive for rural youth. Emphasize the importance of social equity, job creation and gender aspect, and promote local markets and direct consumer-producer exchanges. So the agroecology, the 10 elements of agroecology ranges between among responsible governance to circular and solidarity economy, including diversity, synergies, co-creation and sharing of knowledge, resilience, culture and food tradition, human and social values, and recycling and efficiency. With my colleagues, we developed a proposal of a bioregional strategic framework for a sustainable food system in Sicily that was published on the Agronomy Journal in 2020. The rationale that led to the development of the proposed strategy employed two fundamental drivers, such as regenerative agriculture versus industrial agriculture and proactive attitude versus reactive attitude of stakeholder, and based on this has identified four possible scenarios. The flourishing agriculture sectors is that one that take together regenerative agriculture and proactive stakeholder response. The outcome of the strategies are four. One is the creation of an institutional governance structure including all stakeholders. The second is the activation of transdisciplinary education to sustainability courses throughout the education sector, from school to university to vocational training. The third outcome is the establishment of an expert group for technical support and monitoring of the entire program. And the fourth is the assessment of the impact of the program and publication of regular reports. So these are the different part of the bioregional strategic framework for a sustainable food system in Sicily, starting from the goal to the values to the overarching objective, the critical success factor, the action plan, and the key performance indicators. If we want to take the path of ecological wisdom, we must accept even greater wisdom to put our trust not in weapons that threaten a worldwide catastrophe, but in the desire shared everywhere in the world to be in harmony with the environment and in peace with the people who live there. This is a sentence of Barry Commoner, written in 1972. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I have prepared for you some tips for tutorials, and I already used this project with my student, so I know how they are important. I have already told you about the timeline of sustainability. That means to report the most significant events in institutional, artistic, scientific research and organized civil society to build a sustainability timeline with particular reference to the sustainability of agri-food systems. Or you can choose to work on an ontology of sustainability, a collection of excerpts from the most important authors of both classical and modern literature who dealt with sustainability issues. Some of my students have written something about Theophrastus, Virgil, Pliny the Elder, or the modern literature like Henry David Thoreau, Rachel Carson, James Lovelock, but there are a lot. Another idea is the glossary of sustainability, collection of words about sustainability, each accompanied by an explanation of the meaning or other observation. For example, carbon neutral, resilience, greenwashing, could be other biodiversity laws, participatory plant breeding, let's say whatever is related with sustainable agriculture or sustainability in general could be included in the glossary. Another project is to collect and describe work of art in the field of painting, photography, music, land art or other artistic expression concerning sustainability themes. I think art is very important to communicate values, principles and actions in the transition towards sustainability. It will help a lot, especially modern art. I think it's very important. And then Heroes and Martyrs of Sustainability, short biography of people who have dedicated or sacrificed their lives to protect the environment or their territory. I suggest you to look at the Goldman Environmental Prize. It's like a Nobel Prize but for the environment, and then you can find there a lot of heroes and martyrs. It's very sad, but a lot of people are killed to protect their place, the environment, especially in Latin America, but also in other parts of the world. The last two tips are to make a video interview with an elder farmer. I suggest you to carefully identify an elder farmer older than 75 years. The final result must be that of a video of about 20 minutes, during which the person interviewed tells the activities carried out in agriculture before the 60s or 70s of the last centuries. It is not necessary to press him with questions, but to create the condition for him or her to be able to relate to his past by recalling the habits, the lifestyle, the cultivation practices, the varieties and the tool used, the units of measurement of that time, his relationship with the land and agriculture, his feeling, emotions, passions, expectation, disappointment, his dreams, realized or not realized. The same interview could be done also with a young farmer who has decided with strong motivation to dedicate his life to organic farming as his only source of income. The end result must be a video of about 20 minutes during which the interviewee tells the activities he carried out. Do not push him with question, but create the condition for him to describe his work, his relationship with the land and agriculture, his feelings, emotion, passion, expectation, disappointment, his dream, realized or not yet realized. I have more than 300 videos, and what is particularly interesting is that the old farmers and the new young one have the same approach. They want to work together with nature, not against nature. They want to have good food, tasty food, and as it was in the past. We had a period of 50, 60 years of the Green Revolution that I don't think it was very green. Now we have learned the lesson from the industrial agriculture and the globalized food system. We have to build new systems, but we have to do locally, adopting a bioregional approach, establishing biodistrict. In Italy there are establishing a lot of biodistrict, about 200,000 inhabitants, a territory homogeneous for history, tradition, geography, and economy, where it's possible in this biodistrict to connect very easily producer and consumer and create a new platform that in America, in the States, they call food hub, where also small producer can bring their products, and the consumer or small restaurant or canteens could provide from local producer. I think the food hub and the biodistrict will be central to the agroecological transition to design and implement new sustainable agri-food system. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best and good jobs that will help you to give your contribution to a sustainable food system. Bye bye.